Welcome to the Catholic Mom Book Club, the winter book club, I guess we could call this. Or maybe for me, I do meteorological spring. That's a big word that I should have tried to say. But so to me, it's spring, but really it's not. We are going to be journeying this time with an amazing new book, a beautiful second act by our Catholic Mom team member, Maria Johnson. Maria, we're so excited to be diving into your new book. So let's before we get started on the content, how did this book come to be?
It really is a follow-up to this kind of shtick that I've had going on for the last 10 years, which is writing about saints and connecting them with interesting people. And so I wrote the first book, My Badass Book of Saints, and it's pretty much the same format, just mature women that are in these stories. And I did the same thing with Supergirls and Halos, only I did it with superheroes and heroines. And so it
I
seemed
love
like a
that.
natural to try to connect again with companions in this season of my life, in this second act, maybe third act, maybe fourth act. We all pivot in our life. Seasons
Yeah, we
change and things do.
So, what if I'm not going into my second act? Though I quite definitely am, just hypothetically. Is this a book that I might be able to like find something in it of not worth, because the whole book is there's always something of worth, but find something for me in it if I'm not at this stage yet.
Well, the more that I've talked to women, and really the book came about because of conversations that I was having with women who are my age, but also with younger women who find themselves in a season of change. So a second act doesn't have to be what you're doing post retirement. A second act could be maybe you're entering into a marriage, maybe you are starting a family, maybe you are changing careers. And so these are opportunities for growth. And sometimes it comes, that kind of growth comes with some strong challenges. And so to have a team of saints that you can turn to, that you can see have overcome the challenges in a faithful, in a holy way, I think is encouraging. And for the record, not all these women are late in life. Um, some of them are young women.
That is true. Well, let's dive into some of these women because there's so many. We're going to do 3 chapters a week. We have 3 weeks of this book club. If you want to learn more about the book club, please visit catholicmom.com. We have a link there where you can purchase it, as well as where you'll find the replays of our videos. And also, if you want to listen to it in podcast form, we've got you covered. So, chapter 1, Resilient Women Who Persevered. And I really liked the lessons that you put here. This just the idea of really looking well, I took from it, and obviously I want to hear more, but you took from it. I mean, why you shared it, but for me, I looked at how I want to do everything, right? Like for me, I feel like I only have so many seconds in my world, in my life, right? I don't know how much they are, only God knows the determined number, but I found that I wasn't doing well at any of it because I was trying to do all of it. And I made a very difficult decision earlier this year to leave my job, my 5-year job as the working for the bishop in the Diocese of Fall River. I loved the work, I loved him, but I just wanted to put myself someplace else. And I thought it was going to be the most devastating thing, but you know what? I I love what I do so much. I never looked back, and it was the right decision. And you know what I regret the most? I didn't make it sooner.
Yeah, yeah, that really resonates with me, and I think it resonates with a lot of women. That was a lot of what actually triggered that first chapter because I started off talking about a mini stroke that I had. Um, and it was precisely because of that. It was that I was trying to do all the things for all the people, and it affected my health. And you just can't, you can burn the candle at both ends right until it burns out. And it met in the middle really quickly for me
Yeah.
with, with a health scare. And it's interesting how sometimes those things kind of recalibrate us.
Yes.
It could have gone really badly for me, and it didn't. And and so I'm grateful for that, but also encouraged that perhaps there's still more for me to do. Right?
And
That
I think
yeah.
to me that comes from that one of my favorite scriptures, that God promises to bring good in every circumstance for those who love him. And I do believe very strongly, if you're still breathing, God has a plan for you. He has a purpose for you. And so to be able to look at that that crisis and say, okay, I'm still here. How can I live better, healthier, but also how can I choose where God wants me more specifically? And then you dive into some women that I just wasn't expecting, Miss Maria, which, knowing you, I should expect the unexpected. But Hedy Lamarr, seriously?
Hedy Lamarr. Listen, we
Oh,
are doing this broadcast because of Hedy Lamarr. It's impossible to think that, but it's true. Her, of course, I know Hedy Lamarr because when I was a little girl, I come from a big film family. Everybody loves the old movies here. We've passed it on to our children, and I remember watching those oldies. They were oldies when I was a kid, and I'm an oldie, so so I remember watching Hedy Lamarr.
I'm an oldie. Kill me.
so so it's really funny for me to think that. But I had read many years ago that Hedy Lamarr had received an award posthumously for a scientific discovery, and so I thought, oh my goodness, well, everybody knows Hedy Lamarr as an actress. Actually, as a bombshell. So we also kind of think that they're not really bright women, that it's just all about the looks. And in fact, she was a scientist. And so she was acting and doing her films. And in her dressing room, she had a table that was set up for her experiments and for her inventions. And it was during World War II that she connected, because she was in the film industry, with a sound engineer who also liked to tinker with things. And they created something that I think that she called bouncing waves, or something bouncing, that led to, that was the initial technology for Wi-Fi and for radar
That's
and things
crazy.
like that. And they had offered it to the Navy, and the Navy said, "Nah, we'll pass on it." And here we are. If it weren't for her and the sound engineer that she worked with, we wouldn't have Wi-Fi and Bluetooth today.
There was a phenomenal show that Mike Rowe did a few years ago. I think it was called The 7 Degrees of Separation or something. And he actually, in that show, highlights Hetty. And that's how I learned that she was a scientist. And just, she was, could have been in your badass book, just saying. She
She
was
really could have.
amazing. So the other person I also never heard of, and I'm not even going to attempt to say her name. I'll let you give us Elizabeth's name,
Elizabeth Lasser. Oh, she's beautiful. She's beautiful. Can I read? Can I read the introduction to the
please.
chapter? Oh my goodness. So I like to feature a quote from the saints at the beginning of each chapter. And this chapter is called Resilient Women Who Persevered. And this is what servant of God Elizabeth Lasser said: Every human being is an incalculable force, bearing within him something of the future. To the end of time, our daily words and actions will bear fruit, either good or bad. Nothing that we have once given of ourselves will perish, but our words and works, handed on from one to another, will continue to do good or harm to remote generations. This is why life is a sacred thing, and we ought not to pass through it thoughtlessly, but to appreciate its value and use it so that when we are gone, the sum total of good in the world may be greater. Isn't that powerful?
Incredibly powerful.
I just love that everything we do, every smile, every smirk, has a lasting effect.
And I loved in the book you talked about how after their deaths, they continued to change the world. And that has been something I've been thinking about for so long, about the legacy that I leave. Like I think about the legacy of faith that I leave. But I really sat for a long time with that part of that first chapter, Maria, about how after their deaths, they were still continuing to change the world. And And I think every one of us in some way, like I want to be able to change the world for my children, but in their relationship to Christ. I can't really change anything. It's not within my realm, right? To change the world beyond that sphere of their faith. And so I just thought that was really insightful, a truly insightful. And why did you pick Elizabeth? What was it about her that you were drawn to?
Well, when I'm trying to match these women, these are secular women who aren't necessarily Catholic. In fact, I don't think that Hedy Lamarr had any kind of religious conviction at all. Um, in fact, one would say that she was kind of scandalous. In
Kinda.
a little
A little
scandalous,
tiny bit.
but it's that lasting legacy thing, right? Hedy Lamarr didn't get recognition for the work that she did until after she died. And Elizabeth Lesur's story is fascinating because she was young when she died, and relative age. I'm an oldie, right? She was 48. She died of breast cancer, and so when you think about second acts or maybe the perception that this book is about older women who are retired, that's not the case at all. It is about the fact that she had a second act like Hedy Lamarr did after she died. She didn't have she didn't have a bad marriage. I think that they loved each other. She and her husband loved each other very much, but they were not equally yoked in the faith. Um, in fact, the day before her wedding, she found out that he was falling away from the faith, and ultimately he was quite atheistic, and not just that, but that he was uh, uh, trying to convert her to that level of atheism, to the point where it made her very difficult to practice the faith in
Oh,
her
wow.
home, because he would bring friends over to that were his friends from where he taught university. He was a doctor, and it made very uncomfortable conversations at the dinner table. It made very
Wow.
uncomfortable conversations with their circle of friends when he was kind of hostile to the faith. And
It's hard.
so it is very hard, because if we experience within our own families, maybe children who've fallen away, or spouses who've fallen away from the faith, or are frankly just not equally yoked with us, it makes it very difficult, because you're not able to relate 100% with each other.
Right.
And so she withdrew her expression of the faith into her journals, and so she journaled her relationship with the Lord. And in those journals, she talked about praying for his conversion, and the day that he would see the truth. And she died, and he found her diaries,
I love this.
and was not only converted. So see, her second act, like Hedy Lamarr's, was after they had died. And not only did he convert to Catholicism, or revert, I should say, but he became a priest, and he was the one who revealed through her diaries, the account that ultimately had the cause for her canonization opened, and she's a servant of God.
That's incredible. Really, we were talking about, we did a podcast earlier today, Maria and I, we were talking about decluttering and about journals and just that power of the written word. And I was teasing that I was going to lead scandalous things in my journal for my kids, just to entertain them after my death. But I think after hearing this story, perhaps I need to keep doing what I'm doing in those.
Maybe I shouldn't have burned mine.
No, I'll still never get over that. You'll have to listen to that podcast on decluttering to figure out, to hear that story, because it's something else. I'm still just not able to comprehend that you could do that. But you did what you felt right. And speaking of doing what you feel right, the next chapter, and I don't mean to move so fast through these, but we have a little time and lots to talk about. All the more reason for our listeners to go and read a second act, a beautiful second act. Ave Maria Press. Our author is Maria Johnson. And the second chapter, you dive into one of my favorites. Hildegard of Bingen. I don't know if I'm saying it right, but I love Hildegard. And just she's such a personal inspiration to me that I was so excited to see her in this book. Why did you include Hildegard?
Well, I included Hildegard because I used to write at a Trappist monastery that was near my home. And because I would sit at the abbey for hours and hours just writing and enjoying the silence, I always felt that I had to give something back to the monks. So I'd stop by the bookstore and I'd always buy something. I wanted to buy the $3,000 statue of the Blessed Mother, but I would drop the $6 for the Magnificat magazine and a cookie. And so one day I'm at the checkout and I look down and I see that they have these cookies of joy. That's what it's called. Hildegard von Bingen's Cookies of Joy. And I thought, oh, this is cool. So I buy it. And the joke is it's terrible because these Trappist monks are famous for their fudge. So I figured, oh, they're good bakers. This is going to be delicious. And I unwrapped that mess in the car, and it was like biting into cardboard.
It's like the early gluten-free stuff.
1,000 years old, 800 years old.
A little military tack for you.
Honestly, that's what those poor guys on the ships had to eat. So I thought, oh, this is so funny. So on the back of the card, it had that it was her cookies. It was nerve cookies that inspired good circulation and good moods. And I'm thinking, like, these people didn't have brown sugar in the 1200s.
It clearly didn't give you a good mood. So
no.
False advertisement.
But what was great about it is that it introduced me to St. Hildegard. So I started to read about her, and my gosh, she was a Renaissance woman before the Renaissance. She was into everything, and it's really beautiful that you can go on YouTube right now and you can listen to the music that she composed, and
it's beautiful.
It is beautiful. But she was an herbalist. She was a holistic doctor. She if it was happening, she was doing it, and she was doing it in a time when women didn't have agency. And her story is remarkable because her parents gave her over to the church as an offering, and I really do believe that we know of Hildegard von Bingen because she was serving the church, because she learned to write. We don't know more about women's history because many women were not exposed to educations, or their writings were not preserved. But boy, hers were everywhere, and she was fabulous.
She was. I love that you said that she had moxie.
Yeah, that's a good word.
It is a phenomenal word. She simply followed, you wrote, the path God had prepared for her. And that idea that if you are so in tune to God through prayer and his will, you really can accomplish in what will become, I think, in your own eyes, remarkable things, because it's what God created you to do, right? Like, is it Catherine of Siena that said, do what God created you to do and you'll set the world on fire? And I think Hildegard was a really great example of just following her heart and just not listening to the world say you can't do that, but saying, no, I feel called to do this and I have the gifts and talents to do this. And yeah, her music is beautiful. Her writing is beautiful. She wrote plays. I haven't seen one of her plays yet. Have you seen any of her plays or read them?
No, actually, I haven't. I've really been interested in the holistic medicine and the botany that she did, because I'm trying to grow my own little herbal gardens and medicinal things. So that's what I've really been interested in. And I think that, maybe one day that you would like to bake those cookies with me, but we'll throw in some brown sugar.
Oh, Maria, all of my cookies come out that way. So even with brown sugar.
Oh.
I'm no Barb Siskevich. I'm just not even close. So the other person you link her with, or pair her with, is Madame Marie Curie.
Yeah.
And she was the first woman Nobel Prize winner. I did not know that.
She got two. She
because
got
she also had
she
moxie.
she also had moxie. I happen to, you know, the way that these women come to me is they just keep coming across my feed. I keep seeing them. I keep hearing about them in conversations, and I feel like they're calling me to engage with them in some way. And this is especially true of the saints, that they just, I mean, you know, Saint Hildegard came to me in a nasty little cookie, but but that wasn't the first that I had heard of her, you know, and she's been gaining quite a bit in popularity over the years, and she was made a doctor of the church, and so you know, it's just that that's how they come to me, and so I was actually reading about Marie Curie because they revealed that her journals were still radioactive. So
What? That's
yes,
insane.
right? And she died of leukemia
Leukemia.
from the same kind of work that she was doing to use the same radiation therapy that people with cancer today use. Isn't that just
I
a
found that
funny
the most
thing?
ironic thing that in her, like people are alive today because of what she worked on, which killed her.
That's right. That's
Like,
right.
that's crazy. But God's ways are not our ways. That's for sure.
It,
They're well beyond. It's just amazing. But I thought that was really neat to remind us of her work, of her own special moxie,
mhm,
and how that she carried on again in a time where it was her husband passed away, but she kept that work going,
that's right.
and really quite
Well,
inspiring.
there's a level of sacrifice in the discovery that she was doing, and I don't think that she knew that there was that direct result of the work for her. But yeah, so I saw this article that said that her journals are still radioactive and will be for the next several hundred years. But you can go to the place. I don't know where it is now, but you can go to where they're keeping. I think it's in France at like the National Science something, and you can go and you can touch her journal if you want to. And the level, well, you know what? Like the level of radiation might not kill you, but
I don't know if I'd want to take that chance. Just saying. Wow, that
I don't
I
know.
would have never have thought they would have become radioactive. Like that's
Well,
alone incredible. Like,
well, she was dealing with isotopes, and so yeah. But
hmm,
so whatever was on her hands was in her journals and probably in her mouth if she chewed on her pen and things like that. Isn't that gross? But
yeah.
there you go. I went down the wrong way, but
No, no, that was fascinating. But I'll bring us back to the book. One of the things I like about Ave Maria's books and yours in particular is that there's always questions to ponder. I love reading, but I also love when the reading brings me to a deeper understanding of myself and more importantly who I am in God and what God's calling me to be. And at the end of this chapter, you ask three very intriguing questions, but the third one really got me thinking. Can you name one new thing that you would like to explore as part of your second act? So I'm asking you, Miss Maria,
oh wow, you're
do
putting me
you?
on the spot in front of an audience.
Yeah, isn't that kind of me? See, what I want to do in my second act is make people uncomfortable. Huh, nailed it.
Well, I think that I am pretty deep in my second act right now with the writing and the editing and the work that I'm doing with Catholic Mom. But listen, when we get to the end of this book, there's a person at the end of this book who is, you know, has bumped into her fifth and sixth act. So what might be my third act?
Mm,
I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I'll take up another language, or maybe I'll become a mathematician, or
that
maybe,
oh,
or
math.
maybe I'll just enjoy being a grandmother.
I like that. And it was interesting that you said that you could have a third and a fourth act because I actually wrote that in my notes as I was reading the book that I feel like I'm on my probably third or fourth act. I've been blessed to do crazy different jobs and but like not just to reinvent myself because I don't think those other things weren't pertinent. I think they were just how I got to where I am. Like I needed those steps to be who I am now. So I don't look at it like like some of these people like a complete 360, 380. 380 was what you do, 380. But for me, was it 360, 180? There we go. Math. See, I will not become a mathematician ever. First act, second act. I just think that's
You did
great
a
that we
good job
can.
of thinking that one through.
Thank you. Maybe I'll become a great thinker. That would be new. That would be completely new for me to think.
Well,
So
I think that in the, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, finish.
nope. I was moving to the next chapter, so you go.
I think that one of the beautiful things about getting older, and we were talking about how on the cover, the reflection of the woman is looks like a mature woman, but whatever
Alrighty
that
then.
means, is is that I think that we do go through multiple acts in our lives, not just the two that the title suggests, but that we do move into different seasons and different things, and they call us to do different things. But one of the beautiful things about aging with grace, right, growing older with grace, is that we also have an opportunity for some reflexive thinking, that we can look back on our lives and see things. And right now, I'm calling my second act the post education period, where I'm doing writing, I'm doing editing, the work that I'm doing for CatholicMom.com, that kind of work is the absolute intersection of all of the experiences that I had leading to this moment.
Mm.
So it uses my education in literature and writing. It uses the teaching that I did in that field. But I did some other things. I worked for about 10 years in the mental health arena, working in conjunction with a clinician to do women's writing therapy.
Oh
So,
wow.
yeah, that was a really cool episode or a season of my life. And so, all of this is, I work in a women's ministry today. And so it's really beautiful. It's a lovely grace to be given this opportunity to look back on my life and see where each one of these seasons, where each one of these acts is building into the next one.
That's beautiful. And I think just so on point. It just absolutely fits what the book has been teaching me so far. We're only on chapter 3, which I'm going to dive into so we get through it in our time. Now, this one, this is the best title ever. Visionary leaders who were unafraid to kick butt and take names. Maria, your literary talents are beyond compare.
Well, because once you meet Saint Olga, you know what I'm talking about. What a I love this chapter. I think that this is my favorite chapter in the book. Really, I had the most fun writing it for sure.
So
And I
tell us
talk about
about it.
two queens. I talk about two queens. First, the first queen I talk about is, and I have to read her name very slowly because it is the Native Hawaiian name, Liliuokalani, who was the last queen of the Kingdom of Hawaii, and um, she's actually it's actually a story. I don't want to say it's not a story of failure. It's a story of not accomplishing a goal,
Mm,
and the lessons and the beauty and the inspiration from that too. And so I think she's an important woman to feature because we've all been there, where we haven't been able to accomplish what we thought that we wanted to accomplish, or what, just quite frankly, things didn't work out the way that we thought that they would.
yeah.
And um, and that there's still grace in that too. She fought for the independence of the Hawaiian people. She saw her kingdom um, be annexed to the United States. And I didn't want to go into a political, conversation about that, because I know even today there's a lot of talk with indigenous peoples of Hawaii wanting their independence. And so the manner in which it happened is just one of those historical episodes that is unpleasant, um, and sad, frankly. But she loved her people so much. And even though in the end they were unable um, to to be successful in maintaining their independent state, um, the love that the Hawaiian people have for her is great. And so I think that she was a beautiful example of that kind of perseverance, but that kind of perseverance for the sake of love, for the love of her people. And so I think it's a great story.
It
And
is. And you paired her with Saint Olga of Kiev, Dragon Slayer. So, you know, I just want to encourage people to read this book just for the titles and the laughs.
so good heavens, Saint Olga. She was terrible. She was so this is every time I talk about Saint Olga, I have to remind us of what Saint Augustine said, that every saint has a past.
Yeah. She gives me so much hope. I'm just going to say that right now. Like, she just gives me hope. If she could be Saint Olga, I'm okay.
Well,
Well,
I hope that you don't have a murdering rampage in you. But so Saint
not
Olga's story
not
is
yet.
really is not yet. Oh my goodness.
Sorry. Go on, please.
Saint Olga. Saint Olga was married. Actually, she wasn't a queen, but she was a regent of some sort. She her husband was viciously murdered by a warring group next to their little dukedom. I think it was a duke, and she had a small son. They had a small son who was about 3 years old, and he was murdered in a very gruesome way. They tied his limbs to trees and then released them. So he was really literally torn apart. And so she
Oh,
vowed vengeance on the perpetrators of this. And as was common 1,000 years ago, they eliminated the ruler in order to annex their properties. And so when the team came to present the case to her that she should marry the duke from next door so that they could unite their kingdoms or whatever, she invited them in and then had them buried alive and killed. And so a second group came to find out what was happening with the first group because they had never returned. And she says, "Oh, you've been traveling so far and wide. Come to the bathhouse. It's already ready for you. Rest a while, and then we'll talk later." And as soon as all of these people were in the bathhouse, she barred the doors and set fire to the building. So
wow. That's a whole different kind of moxie.
that was not moxie. That was actual, really horrendous violence. And then, I mean, this went on for another round, and that ended up in the immolation of the entire city because she went to the warring group and said, "Hey, so I won't marry you until we can have a memorial for my late husband that you murdered. So let's have a dinner, and then in tribute, you will give me a pigeon or a bird from each of your families," which she then loaded up with fire making things and set them free, and they returned to the city, and the city burned down. So
Wow. I mean, to be fair, the woman is grieving, but go on.
I mean, it really is. I'm just
Tragic.
appalled, really, by
Oh,
by the by the level of violence that she was capable of. But if you would put it into context for the time, she had to assert herself,
yeah.
eh, against the first round of violence against her husband. Was it overkill? No pun intended. Um, yeah, I mean,
Absolutely.
that's a level of evil and depravity that is horrendous, right?
Mm.
Here's the incredible thing. Over the course of the next decade or so, she had a conversion to Christianity. And I don't want to give away the entire book, so I'm not going to tell you who her godfather was, but it was a big guy. It was an important godfather.
Yeah, it
So
was.
so it's really a story of redemption. And while she didn't, I mean, she was responsible for bringing Christianity to to that section of what today we call Ukraine. And so it's an amazing story of redemption. How in the world can you turn around such an awful, awful first act into a second act that converts your entire kingdom? Pretty amazing story.
I mean, that's the whole heart of Christianity, right? Like forgiveness, mercy, that who you are doesn't mean it's who you have to be forever. Like that's the beauty of this the season that we're entering here in Lent, right? That this is a time to really look at your life, to look at where you've been and who you are, and to turn to God and just ask for that grace to be who He created you to be. And sometimes it's a harsh reality. There's some
It
things
is.
that we have to say goodbye to, or really atone for, that we don't even want to admit sometimes that we've been responsible for.
Yeah.
My goodness.
Yeah. So I love the fact that as we explore these saints in this book, we can really see that some of them are on a huge stage where what they're doing is enormous and bigger than life, like Olga, um, or very gentle and very silent and long suffering, like Elizabeth Lesueur, and everything in between.
Well, I cannot wait to next Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time when we dive into the next three chapters. We have been talking about a beautiful second act, Saints and Soul Sisters Who Taught Me to Age with Grace, from Ave Maria Press, with the author and Catholic Mom team member, Maria Johnson. And we look forward to talking with you again next week. Thank you all who joined us live. And if you're joining us in recording, please leave your comments in the comments section or send us an email. We love hearing from you. We love interacting with you. That's what we're here for, not to be talking heads, but to be a community. We are the Catholic Mom community, and we invite you to catholicmom.com to learn more and to get a copy of no, it's winter book club, A Beautiful Second Act. Thank you, and God bless.